Hi, everyone, and welcome to Lurking for Legends, a live videocast where we talk with people from all walks of the publishing industry. I'm Christy Stratus, author of the historical suspense series, The Dark Victoriana Collection, and my awesome co-host is Richard H. Stevens, epic fantasy author of the series Soulforge Universe, Soulforge Saga, and a lot more. Lurking for Legends is a live interactive broadcast, and we encourage viewers to chime in with questions for our guests or comment on what you hear in the show. So tonight we're welcoming Bruce Hanson, award-winning short story author. Welcome, Bruce. Thanks for being here.
Well, thank you for having me today.
Yeah, we're so excited to talk to you. So let's just start out with you telling us a little bit about yourself and your writing.
I started writing probably 30 years ago, which was a big change for me. Looking at school, I did not write, I did not read, I did not like English, et cetera, et cetera. I'm a pure mathematics science person. And I started as a exercise in creativity. I set a personal development goal when I was working every year. And it was recommended to me to sit down, clear my mind, and write just anything that came out. And what came out from nowhere. I didn't know what had happened. It was amazing. I sat down the next day to start again, and I started my first novel. And I spent probably about 2 years off and on until I had that novel completed. It never got published, but that kicked me off in the writing. And then, like a lot of people who have young kids, I started doing some children's story, particularly in Canada. That's what gets published as opposed to intrigue or mystery novels. So I switched to children and then into adult and young adult short stories. And that's kind of where I focused for the last several years.
So you write short stories, but you do also write longer works, right?
Well, yes, I have written the novels, I said, and I have a young adult novella. Will hopefully be out before year end. And it's a mystery thriller adventure sort of thing.
So just a bit of background, you're a member of the Muskoka Authors Association amongst yes. others. And I just want to take a moment to offer special thanks to Paige Taylor, because Paige introduced me to the Muskoka Authors Association. She's an aspiring young fantasy author who I have kept in contact, and I mentor, so to speak, since I was invited by your group to do a reading last year. So I'm guessing that's where we got the contact with you on there. And that's it's amazing how many associations and writers groups there are across just Ontario, not to mention the whole world. So it's writing can be such a lonely endeavor, and yet there are a lot of groups amongst our peers and feel amongst ourselves. So you were talking before we went on air that you're trying to start up your own writers group up in a place called Coldwater, Ontario.
Right. Yes, as you'd mentioned, I'm a member of the Muskoka Authors Association, and that's some of people are familiar with the writers community of. I used to be a member of the Simcoe County before it folded. Writers community of Durham Region, writers community of North York. They bring in speakers, they do support activities. But I'm also a member of the Barrie Writers Club, which is a critique group. And a woman started the Barrie Writers Club as part of, she's part of the Legion up there, or was, and started a contest up there as well for seniors. And I saw it and I joined. It was very small. She unfortunately passed away, so I decided to take it over and try and get this thing off the ground. So we had our first meeting of 2, and we'll keep advertising and see if we can stir up some interest. It's meant to be a critique group based on the formula we use in the Barrie Writers Club, and help writers at all levels to enjoy writing and to improve their craft. So yeah, that's my latest project.
And that's interesting that you mentioned a critique group, because there are so many different kinds of writers groups. I'm in a couple. I'm in one writers group. We just had a meeting tonight, which is more about the writers just getting together, kind of sharing their daily stories, not the stories that they're writing, and just what the trials and tribulations they're going through. It's just kind of a camaraderie type thing, and we'll share tidbits and stuff like that, information if people ask questions. But I'm also in a critique group, and that's something totally different.
Oh yeah.
I've been in a very rough critique group in which I thought I never should write again, and I don't think I wrote for a couple of months after I was just ripped to shreds in there, and I just totally did not enjoy it. And I'm now involved. I finally got involved in another critique group, and they were amazing. Their constructive criticism, their positivity, and everything else, just it's what a fresh breath of fresh air. So there's so many different kinds of writers groups out there for us authors.
Yeah, and even within this one type, for example, critique groups, you can get, you've got to find a fit for your own personality and your own style. There's people who have been part of the Barrie critique group for years and years and years until they've moved away. One is down Costa Rica for a while. No, Belize, I believe. And one's moved down to Leamington, Ontario, so we've lost some long-time people. Others have said, no, it's not for me, and moved on. And yet, yeah, it depends which one you're in. I've been in other critique groups. I'm in Toronto, and I had a similar experience. In the one, I went in with what I thought, this was years ago, was my first kind of artistic approach. It was a non-standard. It had more symbolism in it, and this was my venture into just branching out and being radical in my way of writing, being an engineer by background. I kind of keep things pretty logical. And I went in with great enthusiasm that I'm going to match this group, which is more of a literary type group. And I read my story, and it was a young adult children's type writing thing. And it was devastating. I was so pumped, and I read this out, and the instructors said, because after a person read, they usually, who would like to go first, and then they work their way around the circle. Nobody raised their hand. And she says, well, then I guess I'll start, and then I'll go to we'll go off on my right. So she made a couple of comments, and the woman on her right kind of looked down, cleared her throat, and said, still staring at her paper, I don't have a clue what he was talking about. And the reviews kind of went down from there. So I left there feeling like I'd been run over. I had tire tracks on my back. But that story's gone on to win a couple of awards. I've improved it. I've, improved my craft since then, but it just shows that it's subjective. Writing is subjective. Different people like different things, and at different stages of your writing, you can improve on what you've had before, and it's important to keep going. But yeah, this group that you become a part of, if anybody out there joins a group and they find it's not to their liking, look for another one, because it's like anything. You're looking for the mesh of personalities, as style as well as critique. So.
Yeah, no doubt. And what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and that's certainly the case in the writing industry. Because as writers, we need to have a thick skin. You get your 1-star review, and they just totally tear you apart.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you think your world's ended, and but you move on. And the best cure for that, I find, is you just look up who's your favorite author, and you look at their reviews. They probably have thousands of reviews, and we have like 10. But they've got a lot of 1-star reviews, and you read some of the 1-star reviews, you go, oh my God, like this person, according to the reviewer, is the worst writer ever. And once you realize that your favorite writer, also author, gets those reviews as well, it's a little easier to handle. It's just tougher when you only have a couple of reviews and the first one's a bad one. So
yeah.
I don't know if anyone here happens to know Dagoberto Gilb. He's an author and a short story writer as well. He's won lots of different kinds of awards and been published in major places. And I was just reading that one of his short stories, I don't remember the 2 places he had sent them, but this one place he started out there, and they had sent him extensive feedback and critique, and said basically it was like a rewrite. He would have to do all this work on it. And he was like, that's no, not at all. That's not even my story. No way. And he took it and he went to another place. I don't remember if it was the New Yorker or where it was. And they published it as is. So it reminds me of your story, Bruce, where, so people did appreciate it. It was just kind of the wrong crowd, which can absolutely happen. It can even happen in publishing with being under the wrong category on Amazon, for example. I've seen that happen to authors where they think their story is kind of one thing and they put it there, and it's really not, to readers. And kind of figuring that out can make a big difference. Just like submitting somewhere can make a big where you submit makes a big difference.
Well, that's I'm very interested and very apprehensive when my stuff goes up on Amazon later this year, particularly the short stories and the because they're very different. They're not. It's not a genre. It's multiple genres, going from. Well, one editor actually accused me of writing literary. Heaven forbid. I wrote literary, me? That's amazing. I didn't think I was a literary writer, but from his perspective, that story was quite literary. So they go from psychological drama, mystery, if you will, through to historical romance, through to literary or borderline literary. So it's not something that will appeal to everyone. I'm almost guaranteed there'll be at least one story that appeals to everyone. But I'm interested to see how the general reception is, because it is fairly broad and they tend to be a little dark, most of the stories on the ending. At least they're not necessarily dark, but not always happy endings. So I'm a little curious and apprehensive. We'll see what happens. Whereas my young adult mystery is a pure mystery. And again, we'll see how people in that age group perceive it, because a lot of stuff out there today deals with real issues, real drama, life challenges. And this is back to a fun mystery. So, yeah, I'll wait and see. And if I get some ones, I'll just put it up that I'm as good as some of the famous authors out there as well. And we'll keep going.
It sounds to me like you write less to market and more what you feel like a story that needs to be told, or a story that you want to tell, or something like that. Is that right?
Yes, that's how I've approached it all along. Now, of course, now that I'm putting them out, I'm getting very interested in how do I market it and get it out there. And I'm more interested in the response from people. I mean, I always wanted to have, when people read my stuff, hope they come back and say, I liked it for the following reasons. But my motivation to write, in part of it was to entertain. But my motivation to write was just to be creative and see what came out. And it was the writing process that I found really exciting and rewarding. So a lot of things surprised me once I read them on the paper. I don't know, do you two ever run into that, where you've written something? You think you know what you've written, but you go back and read it and you kind of go, wow, where did that come from? And you start making some connections in your own story that you didn't realize were there when you first wrote it. That's happened to me. I don't know, have you experienced that as well?
Definitely. Yes. It happens to me all the time, where I don't even realize that I've drawn connections between things, or even between books, that can happen. And it's so rewarding. I love it. It's such an exciting moment.
Yes.
Richard, it must happen to you too. Your pantser.
Oh, all the time. Like when I read through it, I go, wow, I didn't realize I had actually said that or pointed that out, and actually made that make it sound like it's a social issue today. Like I write epic fantasy, so it's not like I write anything about this world, but there's a lot of things that carry over through the characters that are issues that we deal with in our world, and because you write what you know. So I subconsciously write about issues that we've dealt with, or stuff I've learned in history, prejudice, bias, all these different kinds of things. And all of a sudden my characters are experiencing these things, and I'll read it later and go, well, I didn't even know I was putting that in there. And it's just how the stories evolve. So, and I just want to be sure we don't get too far behind on these things. And I want to comment on David Kelly here. He's going back to our critique groups. He says, are any critique groups actually useful? All the ones he's heard of sound pretty poisonous. And like you said earlier, Bruce, and my first experience, if I would have went by what I learned or what I was told when I walked out of that critique group, I would have never wrote again. You would not see me on Lurking for Legends. I would not have be writing the last chapter of my 13th book tomorrow. And I've got 12 books published now. And, I'm not looking back, but if I would have taken their word for granted at that time, I would have never written again. And then when I was invited to this other critique group just before COVID, I said, no, thank you. I don't want anything to do with it. I actually did go just because I knew the person, and I went there thinking, oh, I'm only going to go once just to make him happy. And they were so receptive, and they were so helpful, and they were so, like, they just boost you up. Like, they'll point out the things that they think that you could improve on, but they do it in such a manner that it's not critical.
Yeah.
It's just pointing out, and I'm human. I know I make mistakes, and I know I'm not perfect, especially my writing is not perfect. That's why we have editors and beta readers and all that other stuff. And so they point out these inconsistencies or things that I can improve on, and I look at it and go, you're right. But they do it in such a way that I go home and I can't wait to get in there and fix it.
Mm-hmm.
And they're telling me the exact same thing that this first group did, but it's just the way that they do it.
Yes. Yeah, I find my writing I've taken courses over the years. My writing's improved incredibly because of the critique group. And several of the people, some of them have now moved, as I've mentioned, lost some of that experience, but hopefully I'm now providing some of that experience that's moved with them. They've attended so many courses, and they go through just the different aspects of writing, be it point of view, showing, not telling, a lot of things, if you've done courses or reading, but identifying those things in your own writing is so much more difficult. And they were great at both teaching those things, just because we were all talking about them. I just learned so much, and my writing's improved so much. And when I take it through and I read out loud and they come back with their critiques, I go, yeah, why didn't I see that? Like, what was he thinking? So it's helped me to answer that question. Not all of them. I've had a couple one that was helpful, one that was horrible, and this one, which to me is more than helpful, because it's not just about the individual story, it's about the overall writing craft. So the answer to the question is yes, writing groups and particular critique groups was a question, at least for me, have been very helpful.
Yeah, they certainly can be, and I think you need to find what fits for you. So just like not everybody likes Stephen King or J.K. Rowling stories, because they don't fit for them. But you might like Edgar Allan Poe's horror instead. So whatever fits for you. And with these critique groups, it's almost like having Christy as your editor. She's going to tell you everything that she thinks you should change in your story or what you should correct. And as the writer, you have the final say. And I would probably agree with 99.9% of everything Christy said, but there'd be the odd time that it's my writer's voice, and that word is staying in there, or this is the way it wants to be said. So I think the same goes with critique groups. You got to go in there with the notion that, yes, I'm going to listen to your advice, but I might not take it.
Right, exactly. And everything that we offer is suggestions. We frame it that way usually.
Exactly, yeah. And that's all it should be.
Yeah, and it's valuable when you go around a group with, say, there's 10 to 15 people who have all written down some suggestions and then verbalize some suggestions, and you go around and say, like, I disagree with that, and I don't think it's that way in what I wrote. And then the third person will say the same thing, like, I just really got confused there. I don't think that got the message across. And then the fifth person says the same thing, you go, wow,
then there's something to it for sure. Yeah. So beta readers and stuff like that, if I have one beta reader point out one thing and I'm thinking, no, I don't think that's right, but if I have two or three point out the same thing, then obviously I'm not seeing something, and I better take a better, closer look at it.
Closer look. And the same thing, you'll have somebody say, yeah, I don't like that for, try this. And another person will say, I like it the way it is. It's perfect.
Yeah, right? I love it. Yeah. Well,
so then you sit back and
brilliant.
Go, now we have differences of opinions on personal levels.
And
which one? Still listen to the other one. Which one do I fit with as the author? And
right. It should come down to your voice. At the end of the
one, and it's usually one I started with. But sometimes I've changed. I've gone with the other person. So, but those are some examples I hope help answer the question.
Yeah, and it's going to catch up to another. So Wanda says, I love it when I read something and have that wow, and I wrote that feeling. It's tough for me to read this. it is like step aside, Mr. King. There's a new queen in town. It's
Yes.
neat. Yes, the eureka moment for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And some mysteries come out when you write. We were talking about writing, not realizing all you've written, and that's kind of an example of it. You know, you've written it, you feel good about it, and then you read it, especially if it's a week or a month later, you go back and go, wow, I don't even remember writing some of that. That's amazing. And then you can get some other special little things. Or do we have more questions? Or because
no, you go ahead. No, you go ahead. We'll jump in when we have one. Yeah.
Just here's an example of something that came out, and I get these weird things happen in my writing sometimes. I wrote a story called The Order. It's quite a short story, just 1,000 words. And it's about escaping a cult. The names of the two characters, well, the one I'll just mention, Salacia. Now, I sometimes make up names, and I thought I had made up that name. So Richard's smiling. I think he's heard it before. But hey, like I said, in school, I wasn't into the arts at all, right? I didn't know the name Salacia. So a woman read an early copy of the story. I asked somebody for some feedback, and she gave me some comments, pluses and minuses, and liked it. And she said, I particularly loved your selection of the name. That is just perfect. And I was too embarrassed to say, I have no idea who Salacia is. So as soon as we got off the phone, I Googled Salacia, and she was a deity or a god or something within Greek history or Greek mythology. And basically she now is Greek Titan or Neptune. Can't remember. I think Neptune. Anyway, she was to marry Neptune. She wanted to keep her virginity. She ran away and hid, whatever. Well, in this story, Salacia runs away from her partner, as it were, cult partner. She escapes. And this woman drew the parallel. And I mean, somewhere inside here, I must have heard that name at some point and read it. But it was just totally out of my subconscious. And the guy's name is Jonas. And so anyway, I'm wondering if there's going to be a sequel come out of this. And since it's about water with Salacia, you know, there was a guy who got swallowed by a whale or something. So you know, you just don't know where some of this stuff comes from. You really don't.
No, and that's so true about names. Is if you can think of a name, someone else already thought about it, and it's probably in print somewhere. I struggle sometimes naming even fantasy characters, you know. So I name them these very obscure names, but pronounceable. I always try to make my fantasy names so you can pronounce them. You're not, you know, twisting or spraining your tongue every time you try and even think it. But you know, you go and Google it, and you go, "Wow, oh, that's in the World of Warcraft, or that's somewhere else, or that's in The Hobbit, or something." Like I didn't even know it was in Lord of the Rings, but you're subconsciously probably putting these names together, and even when you name books, like getting book titles, it's tough to name a book title without having someone else have that book title name somewhere. So it's a constant struggle when we do names for sure.
All the research to have to just see if that
Mhm.
name is already taken, and even if you decide to do a pen name, you know, all the research it takes to make sure you're not going to get overlooked and stuff.
So David's trying to offer you a bit of advice there. He's saying,
Yes.
watch out.
Yeah, bring it on.
So just I'd like to take a moment. Oh no, sorry. I'm just reading my script here. When did you start writing, and what actually prompted you into writing?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, it was a exercise in creativity. And I picked different things. One year I picked time management, I picked confidence building, I took creativity.
What age were you though?
Oh, I would have been in my, let's see, late 20s, early 30s.
So it wasn't when you were younger. It wasn't when you were in school and you enjoyed creative writing or anything else.
No, I wrote a masterpiece of a story about dinosaurs in grade 3, and I got a C, and it destroyed me for life, or at least until later in my life. It really did, and I wasn't a strong reader, and they put stuff like Dickens in front of me. That's thicker than a comic book. I can't, and there's no pictures. Like, I can't deal with that. And then Shakespeare, to me, was a totally different language. It was a foreign language. Mm-hmm. I could not understand it. I had no idea what they were saying. So literature in terms of school, for me, was just a washout. I did okay marks-wise, relatively speaking, but I lived on Cole's notes. Before an exam, I would just memorize Cole's notes and then spew it out on the paper, because that's the only way I could get through. I was not interested in the material, even though I tried, even though I didn't like it, I still tried. So, yeah, it was the creative side of the writing that got to me. And one of the things that put me off for so long was the school process of, well, you think of something when you're writing a story, and you write an outline, and you kind of put down your plot points, and you figure your characters out. I could never figure out what to write about. I never got out of, up to first base. And when I was given this process of just meditating, in front of your computer or keyboard, in my case, computer, and counting yourself down and bringing yourself back up is how I did it, and putting fingers to keyboard. And that first time I wrote a page about some tiger going through the jungle, which I'm sure was horrible and poorly written, but the point was I had no idea where it came from. And the second day when I sat down and what started my novel is the first chapter was somebody flying into Iran and with a mission that's turned out to kill somebody. And the next night I sat down, and it was some guy in New York, upper state, trying to get hold of some manuscripts, some tapes of a gentleman who had passed away. And the third one was some woman in Tehran who was talking to a best friend about her life and where it was going. And those three things, I never planned ahead. I wrote a whole novel that way. And the three streams all came together. Of course, the characters interlocked. And it was just that process of creativity. And, no, I don't have to have a plan. I don't have to have my characters laid out. I don't have to know what they're like, because they're going to tell me over time. And then I found out you have to edit, and it's not as much fun as the writing part, because now you have to do some of those things. And you have to start putting some flesh on the characters and make sure they're not the same, and all that good stuff. But yeah, that's where I started, and that's how I started. And if I hadn't attempted that exercise that one night, I still wouldn't be writing, because I would still think I needed an idea, and I could not figure out where people got their ideas from. I couldn't come up with a good idea to write about. So the answer is, don't just write. The idea will come. And I realize that's what we as writers now call pantsers. And so I'm a pantser through and through. And we don't understand plotters in terms of process. And plotters don't understand us in terms of process. But we all have a bit, of both elements. I mean, I love doing research. So when I get my stuff down, I write. I don't care if the stuff is right or not. My historical romance, I've read enough stories about Elizabethan England or Victorian England to at least have an idea of places in that. And then I believe fiction is fiction. I don't use the real street names. I don't care. I make them up. Some people won't like that. Some will. I remember Robert Ludlum, the Bourne Identity, when I read that, which really got me into reading again. Every one of his books that he wrote has some reference to Canada. And I think it's because his wife had some connection to Canada. I'm not sure now, don't quote me on that, but I think that's what it was. But the Bourne Identity, or a person got killed in the tunnel running from the Ottawa airport to the parking lot. Well, there is no tunnel. There certainly wasn't at that time in Ottawa. And I went, well, that's not right. And then I realized that this is fiction. It doesn't have to be 100% right. And so I give myself that latitude too, which is, again, somewhat like in that story I referred to, The Performer, which is the historical romance. It takes place in London. I know the different areas. I checked on the maps to make sure I was good on that. But when it came down what streets they were running up and down, I added my own flair. So, oh, and if anybody's writing in that genre, there is, I'm sure I have a link somewhere to it still, but there's a site that has a map, a drawing of London from that time frame, and shows where people lived by wealth. And it's amazing, although the wealthy would live on a street, right next to them were more the working class, and then there was the black areas that were the real poor areas. It was amazing to see, but it also allowed you to get a feel of the city of London and its actual data from the 1800s. So anyway, just throw that out for those people.
That was super useful. Yeah, super useful. Someone like me, I appreciate that kind of stuff a lot. Writing historical.
Yeah. So I do like the research part and some of the character stuff, but yeah, it's the creative aspect that really drives me forward and got me writing.
Mm-hmm.
Long answer to that simple question.
I liked it. So I know, we're all pantsers here. And for some reason, when you said before the show that you are or were an engineer, mm-hmm. I was like, immediately to me, that sounds like someone who would plot. It doesn't sound like someone who would pants. So, I know that you started, I don't know if you started writing before you were an engineer or not, but does that part of you that may like prefer organization and things like that ever get in the way of your pantsing?
No, amazingly it doesn't. And I'm as surprised as anybody. I think that's, well, I didn't know there were two ways to write. I only learned one way in school. But when I first wrote that way, I thought I was weird. Like, I didn't really want to tell anybody, and I didn't think it could be any good because, I'm not doing it the right way. And as an engineer, certainly you get a problem, you collect all the data, you then put together a solution. It didn't fit that training either. And it was after I graduated and was working as an engineer. But I think two things come into play. One, I then read, what's the name of the book by Stephen King, On Writing, and found out that, like him, I love Vincent Price old movies back at that time when they were out. He's a pantser. In fact, he wrote very strongly about not worrying about character or plots, let the characters tell the story. And he starts off with a question. And quite often now I do have an idea, or I have a question or a stimulus that, I think I'll write about that. And that's, then I just let it go. I don't think about it any further. So when I read On Writing by Stephen King, I suddenly said it justified my process. And I got more confidence in it. And the other aspects, I said there were two, was I don't think I'm a normal engineer. I'm not as hands-on as I love playing with electronics. And in high school, I belonged to the electronics club. No, I didn't join the mathematics club or the chess club, but I was in the electronics club. I found I was different in my interests, and they're a little broader. And it's one of the things when I moved away from the engineering side fairly early in my career, and I moved into sales. I had an opportunity to go towards being a communication technology engineer, which would have been a good career path on the engineering side, or going into sales, which was the scariest thing as I could ever think of doing. And because of the company I was in at the time, which was a sales-based company, I decided I'm going to go into sales. And that drove me into forcing me to get in front of people to talk, which I was stage fright. I could not talk in front of people. In school, I couldn't get up in front of the class. And that's what drove me to take some courses that most engineers wouldn't take. I mean, some would now take, and they're doing more of this now. Like, this is years later, though. Toastmasters. But I wanted to, I decided I needed to gain confidence and be able to speak to people and speak in front of customers and more than one person at a desk. So I also signed up for acting, which was the scariest thing I thought I could ever do as well. And I did an acting for non-acting evening class. And then it took a year to convince a friend and myself, got after each other, to go in and join Second City. And you won't find many engineers who have trained with Second City. But I had to do that. I had to push myself in that boundary to go where I wanted to go. And all that stuff also contributed to, improv, to writing as a pantser. So there's something in me that's not pure engineer. I've got a little bit of something else that keeps me writing as a pantser. And keeps me in that direction of just kind of improv writing. And that's how I think of it a lot. I thought of it as improv writing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I think to us pantsers, plot is a four-letter word that we try to avoid using. So,
yeah.
And I have to ask, you mentioned Second City, and of course I'm thinking of John Candy and all those people. Is that kind of on the vein that you're in? Like, were you actually part of that broadcast?
Oh, no, I never made it on TV. Heaven forbid. I only got on stage once, and that was the most embarrassing thing in my life. You're practicing skits, and you're in front of the rest of the class. But I took a separate group, separate from Second City, and it was run by Dave Thomas, who you may know from the Great White North.
Yeah, he's a poser, yeah.
So he and two others ran a separate class as well. And it was so intensive. I dragged my friend and I would drag our butts out of that place at the end of the night. It was so much fun, but so draining. It was one of the greatest things I ever did, as greatest personal development things I've ever did. I encourage everybody and anybody to do it, no matter how scared you are. That particular class was a 10-week class. They didn't tell you till the 9th week that the 10th lesson wasn't a lesson. You were going on stage at a local venue to perform. Only friends and relatives would be invited. It would only be guests invited by the people. And as I said, most embarrassing thing I've ever done in my life. That was horrible. I'm not a good actor, but there were so many other skills associated with the acting, with getting in front of people. I became a public speaker and a trainer as a result, and fairly good one, I like to think, as a result of doing that work.
Oh, good for you. That's awesome to hear success stories like that. I was terrified to speak in public as well, and here I am doing a show but Christy pretty well carries me. So, but this is something I would have never dreamed of doing a few years ago too. So you just got to put yourself out there and don't take yourself too seriously, I think, and just enjoy the ride for sure. Oh, that's good. That's very interesting that you said that. So, just before we go, one of the questions you asked us to ask you is why haven't you stuck to one genre? And so it'd be interesting to know that. Yeah,
I didn't ask you to ask me that, but
we ask you for certain questions, and so why haven't you stuck to one genre? Because I'm not familiar with all your short stories and stuff like that. And so go ahead.
That comes from the pantser improvisational acting side. I really don't know the answer to that in a way. And you're right, I recall doing that now, sending you that. I thought you meant within this.
No.
My genre, if you will, both in interest and reading, my number one genre is intrigue, mystery, thriller, psychological suspense, thriller as well. And so when I wrote my novel, it was international intrigue. My young adult stories, a lot of them are adventure, one sci-fi. It was virtual reality before anybody knew what virtual reality was about. And so it kind of stuck to that groove. But when I started writing adult short stories, I don't know what flipped the switch, but just different things came out. And we were sitting with a friend for dinner, and her daughter was up from the States and talked about an uncomfortable situation they were in where they were being stalked by her ex, her and her two daughters. And I thought, I'm going to write a story about that one day. Not about her, but about that topic, because it's such an important thing. And I didn't know if I could do it, but I sat down one day just with that idea, and I wrote a story. And it got honorable mentions in the Canadian Authors Association contest and got published in an anthology. But for some reason, when I'm dealing with a short fiction, I can go anywhere, and it's just hard to say. I have another story about gang violence in Toronto, and I wrote it in a very different process, and it was amazing how it all fit together. And some people reading it find it a little confusing, but I'm being stubborn on that one. I'm probably wrong because I'm in my minority, and I guess it's my baby that I don't want to throw out the bathwater, but not the story itself, but the layout. I want people to be a little confused at the beginning, and then come to realize halfway through what's happening. So I think I'm tapping a little more into what's going on around me. When I was a younger writer, I didn't have that exposure, and I was just tapping into what I like to read. And I think that's where the multi-genre comes from. But I don't have a 100% answer for it. I think that's how the brain is working.
Yeah, no, that's very interesting. Just before we wrap this up, one is asking a question here. So who are your favorite thriller suspense authors?
Oh,
and what is the one author or book in that genre that you would recommend other than your own, of course?
Yeah. Well, what got me started reading, I was years after school and I still love this book, is Robert Ludlum's The Bourne Identity. Don't be confused by the movie. The movie is very different. It's based on it. It's similar, but it's very different. And it's, to me, great. I do like some Stephen King, which isn't really in that area, but some of his stories are very, very interesting that way. His short story, Room 426 or something. Other people, I'm trying to think now, because I haven't been reading them. I've been branching out to reading other stuff, trying to read different genres just for experience and even literary, just for the experience and the exposure. I forget their name. The one in a mystery vein, I like A is for whatever, M is for murder, the woman who's working her way up through the alphabet. I like some Jodi Picoult. I like Louise out of Quebec. The Gamache series. Come on, help me out here. My memory isn't great with names and faces.
That's not my genre, sorry.
Was it Scarlatti, the one that who worked with bones, would be brought into sites? Again, I'm not being very helpful to the listener. I'm sorry. I just don't have the names at my fingertips.
Those were good suggestions, though.
I actually have them in my library, and I know that what you're talking about. It's not Catherine Cookson.
No.
But I know what you mean, and I don't read that either. My wife would read that, so if Caroline is listening, she can maybe tap into that. But so
so most of them that I've read are from the past years. As I said, the one I do like is Louise. You want me to run and get the book? It's on my nightstand table.
I'm sure there's so many out there for sure.
But hers are somewhat a little more literary, I think, in a sense too. They're very well written. but they have a lot of additional stuff as opposed to thriller. It's more a mystery, a murder mystery than a thriller, although there's thriller pieces in it. Yeah, sorry, I can't be more articulate on that one.
No worries.
If somebody wants to get hold of me on, for example, on Instagram, author.bruce.a.hanson, and I'll pull out some names for you. I've got a little time when I can actually look, not on the spot. I mentioned you earlier, Richard, that thinking on my feet wasn't my fastest, my best.
No, you know what? I feel your pain. I'm the same way. So just on that note, if people want to read stuff from Bruce Hanson, where would they find something if there was? I know you haven't got a book published, but you have short stories. I imagine they're in periodicals or something.
They're all out of publication now, which is one of the reasons I'm pulling them together in my own book. If you go to the Muskoka Authors Association site, just type in Muskoka Authors Association, and you go to the contest tab, and you scroll. Louise Penny, yes, that's it. Just came up on the screen.
There you go. Awesome.
Thank you, Gail. If you go to the contest site and then scroll down, and it says read winners, my story, The Unknown Civilian, is there. You can read that. If you go to that, that's the only place you can read one right now. I do read on video the beginning of The Performer. If you go to the Bracebridge Library, Tall Pines, Google that, and it'll come up with several people from the Muskoka Authors Association doing a reading. That'll be it. But I do hope to have my stories out later this year, the young adult mystery and my short stories. So keep your eyes open. Follow me on Instagram. I'll keep you posted.
So I'm gathering that you don't have a firm date set in mind yet.
Well, the firm date was about the third week of October, but I'm running behind, so we're now looking at November. I'll be getting some stuff out to ARC readers over the next week or two. I've got some final change. At the editing process is like you're never finished. At some point, you got to draw a line in the sand. The books have gone through their first edition of internal formatting. Covers done for the young adult. I've got the cover design I want for the short stories. I have to find somebody to do it now, or figure out how to do it myself. And I'm putting pictures in front of every short story, and I'm missing two. One of which I'm hoping both of which are going to be done this week for me. The rest I've done myself, and then it will go back in for final formatting. Have to get the title page done, and then it'll be put into Amazon. So I'm certainly hoping beginning of November, first half of November, we'll see the light.
Awesome. That's great. So thank you, Bruce, for joining us today, and we wish you luck when you actually finally get that released, and keep us updated on what's going on. And Christy, just before we take off, what's new in the Christy stratosphere?
There's nothing new here. I am boring. Nothing is new here. I paused on writing my second nanopunk book because I knew it was going in the wrong direction. So, usually I just power through that kind of stuff in the first draft, but I could feel that it was just, I needed to get where I was going first. And I had a good think, and I know basically where I'm headed now. So I'll continue writing that, and the next Grimoire Society of Dark Acts, episode 10, that would be, has been halfway done for a little bit, but you know how life is, it gets in the way. So, those are my updates. Nothing too exciting, but it's coming. I promise it is coming. Probably this week, because this week's a lot calmer for me. So how about you, Richard?
And people can find your stuff on Vella, correct? The Grimoire?
Kindle Vella, and if you don't want to do Kindle Vella, which your first something like 200 tokens is free, so you can read like all of my episodes or most of them for free if you want to. And if you don't want to do that, you can go to Patreon, patreon.com/ChristyStratus, and you can just pay $1 a month to support me in my creative endeavors, and you will get all of them. All of them.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's new with you then?
I am one chapter away from finishing my 13th book, and it will
Very
be done
exciting.
tomorrow. I was going to finish it today, and I stopped. I said, nope, I want to savor this chapter and do it tomorrow. So Dragon Sect will be done tomorrow, and then it's going through its editing processes, and it is slated to be released. It's supposed to be the end of November. I'm trying to push for 16th of November just because I actually have a book show I'm going to be doing. It's kind of more of a Christmas market, but I'd like to have that when I do this market on the 23rd, I believe. So the Tuesday before is the 16th or something like that. 21st, I guess, the market. But anyway, that's what's new with me. And then for the rest of the year, I'll probably revisit the 2 novellas that I first got my teeth on Amazon, and I want to make them a little bit more sound than they were when I first released them in 2017. So anyway, thank you again, Bruce, for joining us.
Well, thank you. It was great.
I'm just going to pull up next week. Where are you next week?
Next week is a special one.
Next week, Lurking for Legends has a special show lined up. At the beginning of September, we entertained a fantasy author panel in which we talked about all things fantasy. And next week, we will be having our inaugural historical fiction panel, where we will, of course, be talking about all things to do with historical fiction. So please join us for that panel. And the panel will include guest authors Margaret Pinard, Tracy Anderson, Vanessa Riley, and our very own Christy Stratos. So I'm looking forward to that. I guess I'm going to be the one asking you guys all the questions.
I guess so.
Right? So I'm looking forward to this one. Let me tell you. So for Christy Stratos and myself, we hope that you all have an amazing week. And until we meet again, take care.